Of course, everyone wants to know how it works. And that's an important question. I'm not going to say that's not important, but it's not the most important question you should be asking yourself. The first and most important question you should be asking yourself is, what is the problem? Because if you don't have it clear in your mind what the problem is, then how are you going to determine if something's working? Remember, we don't want to confuse change. A child might be engaged in a program and we might be able to observe change in that child, but change doesn't necessarily equal working, especially if what's being looked at isn't addressing the problem. So I want to first address this issue of what is the problem, because if you think that the problem is your child's behaviors, you're wrong. Your child's behaviors are symptoms. They are the result of the problem. If you think the problem is my child has autism, you're wrong. Autism is also a symptom. In fact, you can go to Google right now, type in what is autism, and you're going to get a whole list of symptoms that describe autism. So we need to kind of get out of this idea that the way to treat autism, or what works, is chasing our tails, playing whack-a-mole with all of these symptoms. Because if you're not addressing the real problem, the symptoms will persist. They will persist. And while you're, chasing around after these symptoms and trying to fix or cure all these symptoms, the most precious commodity you have, which is time, is moving along, right? So if we want to be very effective, then we need to really answer this question and take a deep dive, get under the surface, and really look at what is the problem. Now, to describe what is the problem, I want to use an analogy. And my analogy is going to be connected to human development, because that's kind of where the root of what is the problem, it's definitely connected to human development and what human development expects out of us. So if, let's pretend I'm a woman, I don't know, 10,000 years ago. And if I give birth to a baby, the first transaction that baby and I have outside of my body is most likely breastfeeding, right? And in order for this to happen, because this is what human development intended, the baby and I have to make this happen. And so what hopefully occurs is the baby is able to latch on to the breast. And by doing that, is able to be nourished by the milk that my body can provide. Okay, everybody knows this. And the issues of latching on or not latching on is not a big deal, because now we have technology, we have bottles and breast pumps and whatnot. This is why I'm saying, let's pretend it's 10,000 years ago. I don't have those technologies. Human development expects that this transaction needs to happen in a certain way, and it's going to require that the baby is able to latch on. If the baby doesn't latch on, this baby will become malnourished, because the delivery system is not going to operate as intended. And if the baby continues to be malnourished, I, as the mother, am probably going to eventually cease making milk, because that's how it works in the human being. Actually, most mammals, that's how it works. So it's not a matter of trying to force the baby to latch on, or for me to make the baby do it. It doesn't work that way. If the baby is not being successful, this is a disaster, right? The baby is going to be malnourished. Now, I want to use this analogy because it's very similar to me to what happens with our kids with autism. Why a baby may not latch onto the breast, maybe it has a cleft palate, or maybe it has low tone, or maybe it's premature, or, we can think of a whole host of reasons why the latching on isn't happening, but we know it's not happening, and that's a serious problem. And I connect this to autism because what's really happening here is that our kids are not latching on to that first relationship. That's the problem. And we can't force the child to latch on to us in relationship terms. We can try and force the relationship on our kids, but that doesn't seem to work. And so you have this very unfortunate system that human development is supposed to be supporting, but it's failing. The child is not latching onto the relationship, and the parents can't seem to facilitate that latching on. And this has consequences. So, like in my example of the breastfeeding, and a baby being malnourished from a nutritional sense, what happens with our kids with autism is when they cannot latch on to that first and most important relationship from which all other relationships are built upon. If that latching on is not effective, then the child is going to be malnourished, but not in a nutrition sense. Their brain is going to be malnourished. That's the problem. It's not the symptoms. The symptoms are the result of the fact that the child's brain is not being properly nourished because the child is not able to latch on to that first parent-child relationship. The first relationship that human development dictates has to be there in order for the child to learn and develop the brain that human development intended. Of course, parents with typical children don't have to concern themselves with human development, obviously, because human development is working for them. By design, the parent-child bond is occurring without any kind of conscious effort. But what to do when it's not happening for you? It's not as if parents come into parenting understanding all the nuts and bolts of human development, right? So when we're looking at how does it work, we can come full circle now and address this question. And that is, parents need to partner up with their consultant who are, really trained experts in human development and how this stuff unfolds. They can unpack it for you and give you a set of tools that'll start building your awareness so that you can start creating the conditions that will repair and return to some sort of normalcy of the parent-child relationship. Because that's the problem, you see. The problem is the parent-child relationship is not evolving the way human development intended. And so the result of which is all of these behaviors we end up seeing down the line. But guess what? When the parents learn how to give their child access to the parent-child relationship, the symptoms end up taking care of themselves. The symptoms either disappear or they get drastically reduced because the symptoms, again, are this outcropping of something that's not working between parent and child. Get it working again, and then that feeling of normalcy, the expectations that can happen between parent and child start to be experienced by the whole family. So this is why this work is so important, that relationship development intervention is intervening on the very problem. This is not a behavioral disorder. This is a relationship disorder. And because human beings develop through our relationships, it is the relationship that forms the mind. If that is not there, then what you really end up having is a thinking disorder. So I hope you found this talk valuable. If you think it's worth sharing, please share it. I would like for other parents out there to know that there's another path, maybe a path that's much more in alignment with the kind of experiences that they want to have, with what they value, and they should at least know what the problem actually is so that when they're searching for that intervention, that it hopefully matches the problem. I appreciate you listening and take care.